Good morning, everyone. So, welcome to today's Hindu newspapers daily edition. So, let us look at the first news. Okay, so it's brief updates, nothing to explain. So, Nitish government wins floor test in Bihar Assembly. Fine. This is with reference to the Congress. So, I do whatever party high command tells me. Not very important. Okay, so let's go further. Yeah, Delhi riot victim claims. So to address this, 40 assessors are to be done. So fast track basis the riot incident that had taken place in Delhi with reference to the Anti-Citizenship Amendment Act. So that thing is being looked into. Okay. National conference to contest all 90 assembly seats in Jammu and Kashmir. Uh, One thing that we see is that the traditional political parties of the former state of Jammu and Kashmir, their willingness to participate in elections. So this is a good sign. It also reflects normalization, reintroduction of the political processes. So that is a good thing. Second thing is, it could cast shadow on Gupkar Alliance. So Gupkar Alliance is basically National Conference, PDP, and other parties. So they're coming together to fight against or to object against the revocation of Article 370. So PDP, National Conference, and other parties, naturally they are rivals, but they have come together because of this Article 370 that has been revoked. Now, if they say that we are going to contest on 90 seats, all 90 seats, naturally there will be tensions with other political parties. Okay. Gandhi's work gave voice to peasants. A relook at Champaran 1917. So yeah, this is important. One is, I think anybody has studied modern history, so you would have come across, when Gandhiji came to our country, he was in one of the talks, he was invited to Champaran, a village in Bihar, by Raj Shukla, right? So he was invited, and we should know about this Champaran Satyagraha. We should have basic details about this. So this is a website actually, Self-Study 365. From there, I have just taken the key points. So this question was, who invited Gandhiji to Champaran? This is a very standard type of a question I've seen number of times. Okay. So Champaran was a place where indigo cultivation was taking place, and the British planters were forcing the Indian peasants to cultivate indigo. They were forcing them to cultivate indigo under a system known as Teen Kathiya system. Teen Kathiya system. So this means three of every 20 parts. So if a land parcel is there, if a land is there, this is a farmland. So 3 upon 20th portion, if we can divide it to 20 parts, so of this 3 portion will go to the planter, the British planter. And these people over here, these farmers, were forced to cultivate indigo. They were forced to cultivate indigo. They had to sell it. Indigo is it's a cash crop. You cannot eat that crop. So otherwise, the farmers could have eaten those crops and could have survived against the famines and all those things that take place. So they were getting impoverished, and whatever was growing in the field, it was not edible. So yeah, this issue is there. Then I think we can also refer to the commercialization of agriculture. Okay, so these are certain issues associated, and it's because of Gandhiji's work, his visit to Champaran and his victory over there, brought forth the issue of indigo, the plight of the indigo farmers. That's what this article is saying. Now, I was thinking, why can't we look at it from this way? Like, Gandhiji is very, very important. GS1 means. So, Gandhiji and peasants, correlation over there. This is a topic that has not been asked, can be asked. It can be taken up. I mean, both optional as well as GS paper 1. I think we should be prepared on these lines also. Right. So how he incorporated the peasants in the national movement, and how to incorporate peasants into the national movement. This wasn't taking place earlier. So that is there. and how he was able to merge farm issues with national movement. So these are the main crux, main theme that we have to bring in. Obviously, we have to elaborate with more and more of examples. Okay, let's move lower. Rahul Gandhi to launch election campaign on September 5, right? So Gujarat election campaign. So Gujarat state is going to have elections. Okay. No child in Maharashtra died of malnutrition. Very important, very, very important. GS3, right? GS2, GS3 governance, and what is the government doing about malnutrition, social justice, and GS3 also. Okay. Now, here we see one more thing. Why is this statement coming? No child in Maharashtra died of malnutrition. So, Maharashtra Assembly, the state legislative assembly is going on, and what we see is kind of a question or session is going on, and the minister replied that no child in Maharashtra has died of malnutrition. We are doing very good governance. Right. Now see this. So we see a system of accountability, how the functioning of the legislature in fixing accountability or raising questions to the government. Now this question was raised, this question comes into public domain and people start questioning it. Okay. Then we see that minister has made this remark, and then we see that right to information queries. So RTI, so by means of which common citizen, common man, or anybody actually can request information from the government authorities, and they are required to give it from the state, and the state is required to give that information. So that reverts, that shows that number of deaths have taken place. 283 children died in Melghat alone, so particular area, 283 children alone, and around 17,000 in the entire state from 2015 to 16. So you see, again, right to information, it is doing transparency. And by means of transparency, people are raising questions like you are saying no death, but so many deaths have taken place. And by doing this, it is fixing accountability on the government. It is putting pressure on the government. So you see the tools, actually, we see number of issues over here merging together. Okay, so one we see from the constitution point of view, the question and answer, this thing. Then we see it from the governance point of view, RTI issue, right? You can see it over here. And besides, obviously, the main issue over here is malnutrition. And malnutrition is something that is taking place across the country. It is taking place across the country. We see the government is undertaking number of initiatives to deal with the issue of malnutrition, number of initiatives. And yet it remains in our country. And I feel that if UPSC will ask this question in the mains paper, it is going to be on these lines only. So when it says that number of initiatives that is still taking place, what measures would you recommend? So first thing we should know is how much hunger, malnutrition is there in our country. We should have a definition of malnutrition and how much of hunger is there, so that we should know. So for this is a very good indicator known as the Global Hunger Index, released for, now this is important for prelims, it was asked actually, I think 2019. So it's released not by the government or not by UN, etc. It is released by a not-for-profit organization, European NGOs of Concern Worldwide and Welthunger Hilfe, some German name. I think we get basic idea from here. So our rank has come down. It has ranked, India has slipped to 101st position in the Global Hunger Index, in which there are 116 countries. So we are performing very, very bad, and we are behind neighbors like Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Nepal. So even Pakistan is ranking better than us. Right, so this is there, or it can also ask you like what are the reasons for India's low rank in the Global Hunger Index. So long back such questions were also being asked. So then we should also know the parameters of Global Hunger Index, the basis on which this ranking is done. Okay, now let's look at the schemes. So this is where actually the PIB comes into the picture. So we have the Poshan Abhiyan. I want you to read yourself right? I want you to read yourself, but you're getting basic idea. So Poshan Abhiyan, to address the malice of malnutrition by adopting a synergized and result-oriented approach. Fine. Then we have the integrated child development scheme and Anganwadi services. So child from a very early age, 0 to 6 years, there is integrated child development scheme. Obviously, nutrition, basic things that a child needs, those are catered to. And the place at which this is catered to is known as Anganwadi. So Anganwadi is the place where the ICDS is implemented. We have a video on this, so yeah, you can watch that also with a lot of images. Okay. Then we have the supplementary nutrition program under Anganwadi services. I think we can also talk about micro hunger, nutrient hunger that is there. So it's not just about having cereals, but it is also having the right nutrient. Scheme for adolescent girls, again Poshan Abhiyan has been mentioned, and all these schemes have been realigned as Saksham Anganwadi and Poshan 2.0. So some additions, some changes keep taking place. Okay, these are the targets that the government has set in the Poshan Abhiyan, right? So you can see prevent and reduce stunting. Stunting means height being less. Prevent and reduce undernutrition, underweight. If you have less weight, it's basically known as wasting. You're very, very thin, wasting. WASTING. Reduce the prevalence of anemia among women and adolescent girls, and reduce low birth weight. Okay, so this we are done with Global Hunger Index over here. Now this article is very interesting. States borrowing powers hit, says Kerala's finance minister. So naturally, this issue is part of GS2, federalism, cooperative federalism, federal issues, the interstate relations. So this is, and this is important. And the friction between center and or union and states, one of the topics in your Lakshmikant book also. So here we are specifically dealing with the borrowing powers of the state, right? So let's see what happened. So basically, during the tenure of the previous finance minister of Kerala, to raise capital for creating infrastructure, and naturally infrastructure like highways, K-rail, all those things require a lot of capital and long-term capital. So the Kerala government issued Masala Bonds. They wanted to raise money from outside. They want to raise money from outside because if you borrow money from outside entities, foreign entities, then the cost of capital is much lesser. So for that purpose, they issued something known as Masala Bonds, that are bonds associated with India masala spices India. So this is an instrument, these are known as rupee denominated bonds, which a state agency can issue to raise capital from abroad. So foreign entity will buy these masala bonds. When you buy something, you are handing out money, so the government will get money, they will get capital, and in the long term they can sell these bonds and get additional money, right? The return on their investment, that is there. So yeah, the foreign capital is always cheaper, right? You look at the Fed rate, rates of the Federal Bank of USA or European Central Bank, you will see that their rate is 1%, 2%. You look at the bank repo rate in India, 7.5%. The basic rate is 7.5%. So naturally, cost of raising capital will be much more. The interest that a person is getting is much more in India as compared to a foreign country. So they will be keen to take advantage of this rate difference between India and an advanced country. Okay, so this is there. So they have borrowed money from outside. So the union has an objection to this. The union has an objection to it. The CAG has an objection to it. So they were auditing. They also raised concerns over the state's borrowing. Okay, so let's see. So we have something known as Article 293, which is basically providing us about the borrowing powers of the state. Borrowing powers of the state. And Article 293 says that if a loan is pending, if a loan given by the union is pending, already pending, then they need permission or consent from the union. So in this case, they have not taken consent and they have borrowed from abroad. They have borrowed from abroad, so they have an objection to this. And therefore, there is enforcement directorate sitting on the head of the former finance minister. Right. So now the new finance minister is saying that you are interpreting the law in such a way, because obviously the states will have outstanding loans from the union. It is quite natural, and that would mean that state cannot borrow by themselves, or it is going to be very, very difficult. And given the pandemic and all those things, the agencies of the union, the same like state public sector companies are not able to raise capital, but similar institutions of the union are able to raise capital from abroad. So for them, the relaxations are there. They can also waive off corporate debt, but it's not the same with the state government, any state government. So this, he says, is patently flawed. This is wrong. The state should also be allowed more of this borrowing power. Okay. The CAG has raised the concern. The CAG has raised the concern that, you know, the money that any state can borrow has to be within certain limits. Naturally, if a state can start borrowing more and more of money, the borrowed money has to be paid back also. So there are some limits that have been set on the state. Otherwise, if every state of a country goes bankrupt, naturally India will go bankrupt. So there are some limits that are set. So according to the 14th Finance Commission and the Kerala Fiscal Responsibility Act, that is a law created by Kerala itself, the fiscal deficit target has been set at 3%, while they are already crossing this and they are at 3.45%. So they are breaching that, and top of that, they are borrowing more money. Okay. Then there is something known as debt to GDP ratio. Now this is a state, so debt to gross state domestic product. So this is supposed to be at 30%, while they are already at 30.91%. So if you borrow more money, then you are breaching those limits. So this is in breach of Article 293. Now moving on to this next article, researchers want Odisha's Angul to plan transition to green energy. Basically, yeah. So researchers, there is this reference of this term known as environmental pressure group. So people who are concerned about environment and they are applying pressure. So pressure groups. Pressure groups is an important topic from the point of view of GS2, the role of the pressure groups, civil society. So this is very, very important. So here we have a pressure group which is saying Odisha's Angul. So this place is rich in coal and it has coal-based iron and steel plants. A lot of industrial activities are going on. So they say that the start should take place from here itself, and this should focus on green energy. Right, so they should move on to green energy, green economy. So reduce the dependence on coal, which is highly polluting, and move towards more sustainable solar, wind energy, etc. So that should take place over here. So this will help in energy transition and support climate change mitigation. Naturally, coal-based anything is polluting, so that will be good. Okay. A theater group to cut short Yakshagana shows. So these are these shows, Yakshagana show. So we should know more about the Yakshagana actually from the point of view of UPSC. And I think you can see this UPSC art and culture notes, right? So yeah. So this is basically in a traditional theater developed in Dakshin Kannada. So South Karnataka, that region, Udupi region, right? So this is important for your prelims. In the state of Karnataka and the Kasargod district in Kerala, right? So you get basic idea of where it is located, and it combines dance, music, dialogue, right? So all dance, music, dialogue is merged into this. Okay, and the stories are drawn from Ramayana, Mahabharata, and other epics from both Hindu and Jain traditions can be seen over here. Now this, and they wear those headgear and all. It's a basic idea you should have. You don't really need to memorize it for prelims. Okay. So this thing used to have all night shows. So whenever they are organizing, it used to be an all night shows. And yeah, now there is this new government regulation which says that loudspeaker should not be there from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. and this requires loudspeakers. People will come and sit together. So because of this regulation, they are being asked to cut short the duration of their theater, right? So theater, that the program that takes place, it should be cut short. Okay. So this Yakshagana show, one of these are performed by mandalis or group or troupe, right? So mandali, and one of the famous mandali is Katil Mela. Katil, Katel Mela. So they are one of having 6 performing troops, and they are going to move outside of this tradition of an all-night show. Okay, heading the G20 and New Delhi choices. So yeah, this is from a former bureaucrat. I think we should read this. And making out a case for the other universal UBI. So we always, whenever this term comes UBI, it is universal basic income. This time, universal basic insurance. An interesting idea. Right, so just briefly what all is there in this thing, and then we'll move forward. Okay, so let's see this. G20 and the New Delhi choices. Why are we talking about it? That's because India will assume for the first time the G20 year-long presidency. Right, so G20 presidency from December 1st, 2022 to November 30th, 2023. So for 1 year, India will enjoy the presidency of the G20. What is G20? A very, very powerful organization. So it comprises of 90% of the world's GDP, 80% of the global trade, right? It's not a treaty-based forum, but it is an advisory body. It can advise the governments and it can influence policy making. Earlier, it was only for financial stability. Earlier, there used to be a main organization known as G8, which is now G7 with the exit of Russia. Then they felt that we need a more inclusive body, having countries like India, China, etc. So G20 came into being. Okay, so very important policy making body at the world level, and it is not a treaty based forum. Important for your pre. And in any case, for G20 international relations mains paper also, it is important. Okay, so it's a very, very important agency. India is having presidency. Right? They'll be in Delhi. So that means India has the opportunity to set agenda of the G20. Setting agenda of the G20, the most powerful countries are sitting over there. So setting the agenda for the global discussions, global deliberations. So therefore, this is very, very important. Okay. Now, when we talk about the G20, there are some concerns associated with it. The G20, the forum, is faced with an existential crisis. What crises are there? Ukraine-Russia war is going on. Russia-US tension. Russia and Europe tension. Right. So obviously, if the world countries start fighting amongst themselves, how will the G20 function then? So that concern is there. Besides this US-China tension. So all this is making it an existential crisis. So that is the tension over here. Okay. So India will have to find a way that all countries, that's India's responsibility since India is the presiding body, that all countries, the interest of all agencies are synthesized, all countries, even with divergent views, sit together and work together. Okay, now what are India's benefits over here? What are the interest agenda? Obviously, setting the agenda is one thing. So one it says is that it will be a unique branding opportunity. branding India. We have done this, we have done that. Look at the COVID-19, look at the digitalization that has taken place in our country. Why don't you come to, and that could branding for what? Why don't you come to our country? Our country has peace, political stability. We are doing so much for economic reforms. Please come to our country and make investments, maybe tourism also. So it's a unique branding opportunity. India can do a lot of things in that regard. Second, we will see after this, like 2021, from December 2021 to November 2025, we are seeing, besides India, there will be Indonesia, Brazil, South Africa. So these countries will also be having presidency of the G20. So that would mean that the global South, the developing countries, which are also known as the global South, they will be setting the agenda for the G20 over the next 5 years. Because otherwise, predominantly, the global institutions are under the firm grip and control of the global North, the developed countries. So now the global South will have this leadership, and that's a positive. Besides, what India must do is it should ensure that the views of divergent groups are taken into account, and developing countries, the countries which do not have representation in the G20, they should get a voice. And yes, end Africa's marginalization. So giving Africa greater say in the G20. So at the moment, they do not have much this thing. And we have the African Union. So it being shifted from a permanent observer to a full-fledged member of the G20. So we get this also, that AU is not a member, but it is a full-time observer, permanent observer. Okay, so these are certain things. Besides, we have this, I didn't mention this earlier, so I missed this. So India's national interest, the benefits for India, leaving its mark on the G20, maintaining its primacy and effectiveness in instrument of global governance. So reforms in global governance, like India can make a case of widening up of the United Nations Security Council, reforming of the World Health Organization, reforming of the World Trade Organization, and number of other organizations. So global governance. So again, the dominance of the Western European countries to having more, making these institutions more inclusive, more accountable. That's the basic thing. Okay, there is one more thing I wanted to say. Just a second. Yeah, this thing is very, very important. This part over here, G20 membership, important for prelims. G20 just does not have 20 countries, but it has membership of other this thing also, like the representation, not membership, representation of UN, World Bank, International Monetary Fund, World Trade Organization, World Health Organization, and other multilateral institutions. So this is important for your prelims. African Union is an observer, permanent observer. So that is another thing. Okay, making out a case for the universal basic income in India. I remember in 2015, the first proper economic survey that had come of this Modi government. Arvind Subramaniam was the chief economic advisor, and he had proposed that in India we should have a universal basic income. Not insurance, universal basic income. That is, a fixed income should be handed over to people in our country. So that was the idea. Everybody should have. Naturally, there are pros and cons, and one big problem is the fiscal health of the government. Naturally, if you hand out money to every single citizen of this country, universal means every single citizen, so it will be a burden on the fiscal health of the state. Now, if you want to do this, you have to cut down on various other subsidies. You have to remove the subsidies and then say, okay, fine, I'll give you the basic income. You can buy things from the market. Right. So there is this concern over here, and obviously it didn't get accepted. But yes, we are now started to talk about it. Now it says, before going forward to this UBI, we have now similar something on the lines of universal basic income, like PM Kisan Samman Yojana, where farmers are getting some sort of income, right? So they are getting it. We have some states that are implementing similar schemes. Like Odisha is having this Kalia scheme, and the state of Telangana is having Ritu Bandhu scheme. Fine. So let's finish at this universal basic income. I didn't really need to do this. I just read this portion over here. Now, what he's saying is, Mr. Rajesh Gupta, he's saying that we should have a universal basic insurance. This thing will keep happening. We should talk about universal basic insurance. That is, every single person in a country has a basic insurance. Naturally, in a country, we have poverty. In a country, like poverty is there, something or the other is there. Healthcare is very, very expensive. Not everybody has insurance, so they are not able to avail medical facilities, etc. So we should have a universal basic insurance for every citizens. And in our country, like if you have ever worked in the private sector, it is mandatory in the formal economy that there will be some social security benefits like healthcare, etc. So if you fall ill, there will be an insurance coverage for you, even if you haven't gone and bought it from the market. There'll be social safety nets like provident fund, etc. But in our country, most of the people are actually in the informal economy, right? So about 40 to 45% is informal economy. 90% of our labor force is in the informal economy. And for them, since so many people are actually outside of the purview of the social security benefits, including insurance, we should have a universal basic insurance. In fact, forget this argument also. Even the developed countries, Obamacare, what was that? Obama healthcare and all. So that was about having universal insurance with reference to healthcare. Similar, we should have it for the entire country overall. So that is the basic idea. Right, so this is a good idea. Let's see how it works. Strangling Tunisia's democracy. Not interested. Not at all interested. What we are interested is in the map of Tunisia for our prelims, right? Where is it located? What all things are there? Basic idea we should have. The death of Inder Meghwal. So an incident had taken place with the death of a Dalit person. Okay, so untouchability is practiced in the villages of Rajasthan. I was thinking of from Main's point of view as to the evil of the untouchability, what needs to be done to eradicate that. I'm not, if you're interested, you can read it. I'm not doing this. It will be, yeah. Okay, patient wait for patents. Patient wait for patents. You know, we are wanting to have more innovation in our country. We want and we also want to stop the issue of brain drain. And what we want is brain gain. That is, people who are stationed outside, who are working outside, like US, etc. Especially Indians, they come and do their research work in India. We want to be an innovation powerhouse. And one of the key things for that is patent protection. Whatever intellectual property of the inventor is there, that should be protected. And it should be easy to file that intellectual property, file and protect that. So these are known as patents. The government has been saying that we are doing a lot on the issue of patents. Patent filing should be easier. We find people from IIT, they get all the facilities over here and they file the patent in Singapore or some other country. So let's see this. So this is very important. So let's read this. This is a very important article over here. In fact, you can merge this with Global Innovation Index. And what is the government doing about it? Where are we ranking on this front? Right? So yeah, we can also correlate with the PIB. More than 40% of Indian origin applicants chose to file patents in foreign countries due to inordinate delays in the approval process in India. And why is that? Because there is shortage of manpower. Okay. Then, in the last 2 decades, only 17% of the patent applicants filed in India were of Indian origin were granted. Right, so that is the case. Also, the share of the applications filed in India, which patents that were filed were withdrawn or abandoned was amongst the highest in anywhere in the world. So people have filed patent and they have within India and they have withdrawn it also, and obviously filed it in another country. This is one of the highest. So this shows the apathy. This shows the problem in a country. Right now, this is the data over here, filing in India and abroad, filing in India and abroad, withdrawal rate. So this is one of the highest we know. The delays are because of the slow processing speed and there is manpower shortage. I have taken a screenshot and posted it on my Instagram so that tomorrow you need to refer to this. You can watch there also. Okay, this is of concern, right? Drought in Europe. Yeah, we'll do this sometimes later. Competition Amendment Bill, not here, not right now. Tomato flu, I had covered it earlier. So basic details of this. Again, same thing I've posted highlights on my Instagram. Yeah, why can't government call all party meet on freebies? Fine, let's see what happens. Interested? Yeah, Modi may attend state funeral of Abe. Idle wing of what? Who? The CID submits papers to bring back 6 Chola era titles. I'll do this later, and there is a good reason for this thing. File papers where, right? What is the mechanism for this? So I'll share that later with you. It's associated with the UNESCO. We'll do that later. A question on similar lines was asked in the mains, so I have that in mind actually. Okay, whose idols have been found? So they stumbled upon the sculptures of Saint Sundarar and his wife Nachiyar. So naturally, these persons whose idols are there and still recognized today, they must be important, right? So please, yeah, do a bit of research on them. I have not done this. Okay. Center voices support for Russia-Ukraine talks. Fine. So yeah, they have always been doing so. Okay. Rajnath also calls for boosting ties with the SEO member states. Fine. Treatment is a service, wellness a charity. So he was inaugurating this Amrita Hospital in Faridabad, and he lauds spiritual leaders' role in easing vaccine hesitancy. So what is this vaccine hesitancy? Right, and we have the government focusing on immunization. We want universal immunization, and one of the problems is vaccine hesitancy. And there we can see community leaders, spiritual leaders are community leaders, so they can play a positive role in persuading and changing the opinion of the masses, because masses listen to this there. Okay, so I was thinking this could be a case study kind of thing. Like you are a SDM or the chief medical officer, you go for the vaccine and you find people are resistant to or hesitant to the idea of vaccination. They feel there is fever, the child will get unwell because of that. There are rumors that it leads to impotency, right? It may lead to the transmission of AIDS. So there are these rumors. So, and it also led to violence. So you were there, and how will you deal with such a situation? What course of action would you take? Regional language important in early learning, very fine. So more content, basically more content is going to come up in the vernaculars at early ages, early stage. Central team in Chhattisgarh to probe Narega work. Fine. So Narega issues and challenges, that is a separate topic. We'll do that later. This is only with reference to Chhattisgarh. Wind project addition to peak by 2024. Right, that means that will peak. Peak means maximum this thing. Okay, so how much of wind this thing is being done in a country? I think we get two things. This I've highlighted, so let's see this. So one is as part of our Glasgow summit promises, climate change promises. So 2030, by 2030, we have to reduce the fossil fuel dependence on fossil fuels. So we want 50% of this thing coming from the renewables. And within the renewables, 60 gigawatt coming from the wind power, right? So that is the target that we have. So far, only 40 gigawatt has been established. So we get some data over here. We can also work about what is the government doing with reference to the wind project, wind this thing, and also we can also talk about the solar aspects, other renewables. Okay. Then I think this is important for your pre annual installation of new wind power projects in India will peak by 2024. But who's saying this? It was a report released on Wednesday by the Global Wind Energy Council. Is it a government agency? No, it's a consulting firm that specializes in renewable agencies. It's a private firm, it's a private initiative. International news, Thai court suspends PM. Rishi Sunak says he won't change UK's Taiwan policy. Ukraine will fight till the end. Fine, fine, fine. This is the business section. GST kitty for top states could rise 20%. That means, yeah, if the GST kitty for top states rise, that is the tax collected by the state increases. That means the economy is also doing well, because when you pay GST, it is on when you buy something good, when you buy a good or services. So on that you pay GST. So if there is more demand in the economy, there will be more GST collection. I consider GST collection as a proxy of the demand in the economy. Okay, India said to plan soaps for rupee use in Russia trade. Naturally, one is we are importing fuel, more and more of fuel from Russia, especially after the sanctions. The fuel prices increased. Russia is offering us at discounted rate. Thing is that because of the sanctions, dollar is not possible. Dollar trade is obviously because there is a sanction on Russia imposed by the West, and they can't trade in dollars because of that. And we are concerned about the stability. I mean, dollar is also appreciating, so we are also not keen on the dollar thing. So we are looking at a rupee, trade in rupee or rupee ruble relationship. So some sort of an incentive like tax benefits or something should be given, so that Russia prefers to trade in rupees. So that is the idea. Rupee ruble, this thing takes place. So, and again, ruble is also depreciated, so that would further ease the pricing of the fuel. Because if you look at the fuel prices, let's say it is at $100 per barrel, it is $80 per barrel. We have to also consider the dollar rate. So we multiply the fuel price and multiply it by dollar. If the currency is high, then we have to pay more. If the currency price is less, we have to pay less. So if ruble rate is less, we'll have to pay less. And if we trade in rupee, if Russia, I mean, we pay them in rupee form, then Russia will have to use that rupee. How will they use that rupee? By buying things from Indians. So it is a win-win solution for India. Yeah, next we have the business sports news. Okay, so yeah, the Commonwealth Games and the chess, there's golf competition that's taking place. So all of that. Yeah, this is, I think this is important for prelims. So there is this fair that is going on organized by the Department of Industries and Commerce. So in this, they'll be showcasing the unique, authentic, original products from Jammu and Kashmir. They have not mentioned that, but I think you can see the images. So what all arts, what all textiles, what all things are there that are unique to Kashmir, right? So that's important for your prelims. And you can see the rice, basmati, some sort of intricate work over here, clothing. So you can see this, right? So yeah, yeah, this is it.